All right, we ready to kick this off and do this thing?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So this is the debut of two homers and a realist.
Hard quotes.
That is
around.
correct.
Hard quotes.
We're going to go through the two homers are
Connor?
Steve, and the so-called self-identified realist is
Lucas.
All right. So we're gonna. This is a maiden voyage. We'll figure out where this is going to go going forward, but we got a lot of hopes and aspirations. We're going to have some other people joining in future episodes, famous people, some people everyone will recognize. But for now, we're stuck with this group. So let's start it off because this is really about how we feel about the game. Talking about the game, we just concluded the OU Tulane game. So let's start with the realist. Are you, based on what you saw in the game, are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Based on what I saw today, I'm pessimistic from my preseason hopes.
Wow. And that's coming from a pessimist, that you're pessimistic.
No, it's coming from a realist who watches the games and doesn't live in la-la land and think every time we play a game we're going to win by 40. Like
So you think it was
other two people.
So when
on
you
this
went
podcast.
into the season, we were ranked number 2 preseason. Was that an accurate preseason ranking, or was that an overranking?
I would say it's an overranking. I would have probably had us in the 5, 6, 7 range.
And so you're pessimistic that we should now be ranked what?
I'm more realist. Well, it depends on how the rest of the
Well, you
day
said you're
goes.
pessimistic. So
I'm
if we're pessimistic that we were going into it at 5 or 7, so that must mean that you think now we're lower than 7.
Well, it depends on how the other teams play today. If the other
Okay.
teams look like crap too, that I thought were better than us,
Okay.
then we would probably be in the same position that we were in.
So today's what I'm getting at, the day has trended for you to be pessimistic after the game. Your game impression was
Bad.
you're pessimistic. Connor, how about you?
You know, I do think there's a pessimistic vibe after the game. We've been in this situation before though. Like, have we not? I
Many
don't.
times?
And we'll get into it later, but I really don't think. I don't think you learn a lot about this team today. I really don't.
It's probably a really good point.
I don't think you learn a lot about your offensive setup and your schemes, and defensively, you know, I think you're trying things out. So, again, I'm gonna go with I'm upset about what happened today, but I'm also not going to mount a decision on the wall based on the things I saw. I do think the number 2 ranking, like, and we've said this before. I've said this before, and I probably even said it this year. Number 2 ranking is an interesting one, and I think we probably don't belong there right now. And we'll see where that plays out at the end of the season, or as the season progresses. But you know, I don't take a lot out of today, and as we get through, especially this non-con schedule and into the deeper part of what we're going to see in the conference, you're going to see more of what we have. But overall, disappointed. However, not going to take a lot away from the team and the game that we saw on the field.
I would say that I am pessimistic from today. I think you have to be. You go in as a 26.5-point favorite, and they move the game from Tulane to Norman, and you become a 31-point favorite, and you obviously, from the get-go, are struggling to get there, get to a pretty good position where you're going to have it looks like an easy chance of covering, and then in the second half just completely lay an egg and make it where a game became a really tight ball game and a bit of a fight down the stretch. You're having to maybe survive an onside kick. You didn't survive the onside kick, and then the defense held. You get the ball back with 2 minutes to stop the game. That was pretty scary, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So that's pessimistic. I would say the ranking of going into the game, going into the week, being ranked number 2 was appropriate. I think it's still probably appropriate to be in the top 5 category. We'll see how everyone else does today, but it's an opening week, and we don't know a lot about anything. I think you're right. We're going to learn more about this team in the coming weeks than we could ever learn today. We're also going to learn about Tulane. We don't know a lot about Tulane. I will say I bet Tulane is the toughest team we will play non-conference, and maybe in the top, I don't know, the 5th or 4th toughest team we'll play all year.
I don't like the idea of saying you can't take away from scheme anything based on today, because in a lot of years, this first game of the season
Sets the tone.
No, not necessarily that, but the fact that a lot of games we have a marquee game on the schedule that maybe Riley and Grinch are holding back
Right,
their
like the
full schemes
Nebraska
for, right.
game
So
would
in
be
years like
if Nebraska didn't suck.
We played an early game against Missouri State or something, but then you have an Ohio State or
Right.
you have a Tennessee, and you're trying not to give
Right.
away your
Right.
your play calls and stuff like that. Well, this year we don't have a marquee game of a team that's any good. So we've had the whole summer to prepare for this game, unlike in a lot of years where, well, the week before you may practice like 2 or 3 days on it, but then you're practicing for that marquee game. It's the
Yeah,
next
but
week.
those practices
we
are
don't have
appropriate because this isn't Missouri State. This is Tulane. So it's not Ohio State. It's Tulane. So I think you're in a tough spot where Tulane is kind of team that is a lot of risk in playing them. Not a lot of upside, a lot of downside. They're going to be good. They're going to be talented,
location and everything else.
and everything else coming
Throw
into it.
everything
So
in the factors.
I think that I wouldn't expect they would come in prepared like circle this on the calendar. It's Tulane. If they're circling this on the calendar and prepared
But
for
there's
this,
no
that would
there's
be
no
very
marquee
disappointing.
game like we play.
I know there's not, but
like
that
we
doesn't
played
change.
Houston. The year we played 2017 or 2016, we played at Houston, and then we had Ohio State coming to Norman.
Right.
So
You
I
got the
can-
excuse in
I
Houston
understand
that
in
you're
Houston that maybe you play a tough game or lose because you spent
very similar
over
team.
a 3-week period. You spent
I'd agree.
a week on Houston, and then you spent 2 weeks on Ohio State, thinking
Right.
you're going to beat Houston. But this year, today's plan did not.
Do you think they didn't
involve-
spend enough time on Tulane?
No, I
Is that
think
what you're
they
accusing
did.
them of?
No, I'm accusing them of spending the appropriate amount of time on Tulane and not doing a good job of scheming.
So you're
Whereas Connor said he didn't take anything away from the scheme.
And I still don't. I still think that, and this is the, paranoid coaching side of things that I'm trying to look at. I don't even know if we're going to see an open playbook until we get to Texas in maybe Kansas State. You might see it at Kansas State. I really don't think you're going to see it in this non-conference, especially with what we saw from Nebraska last week. I truly don't.
I would probably agree with that.
I mean, I don't know how much Lincoln is going to really invest into opening everything up. Until,
I don't know why you'd open it up. It's Tulane. You shouldn't
exactly.
have to open them up. It's a 31-point
and
spread for
like
a
you
reason.
said, an onside kick that was terrifying and that we lost, then puts us in a position to potentially lose the game. Makes you completely retrospectively look back at that and say, "Man, I might have messed up. Like maybe we should have tried some different stuff or stuck to a specific game plan." I don't know if you're going to see that though until Manhattan in week 4. Honestly, I really don't. And that's even a stretch. Manhattan maybe should just be to prove.
It's not
a point.
Manhattan in week 4, is it? Isn't it West Virginia?
West Virginia week 4. Sorry.
and
Yeah.
then-
So
and-
even then.
Well,
Yeah,
everything
so
in the
until
Beanbelt
you get to
era
conference, yeah.
starts off as a patchwork offensive line, unless we've had like 4 returning starters.
Right, and gets
Offensive
stronger
line,
and
The Beanbelt
stronger and
era,
stronger.
We've started off not
Offensive
great
line
the
looking
first 3 or
bad.
4 games,
Right.
and then usually after the Texas game, generally our offensive line becomes amazing by the end of the season.
Right.
So
right.
I'm not as concerned with that, but I am concerned that we got blown off the ball the entire game.
We averaged
We
we
opened-
averaged 3.3 yards per carry today.
3.3 yards is horrific in this offense. We're used to averaging 6 to 8 yards per carry.
And several times we had 6 to 8 to 10 yards in a carry, and then we would go into the line and just get stalled out and stalled out and stalled out. So that kind of goes into the next. We're sort of talking about our overall impression, which was the next topic. That kind of goes into the next one as well, which is the at a player level, or maybe at a position group level. What was the most surprising? What was the most disappointing? So, Connor, for you, what was the most surprising? What was the most disappointing?
I'm looking at the stat sheet here. It's most surprising. I still am surprised at how often we rotated and how often we substituted today, especially and I know we're deep, and maybe I shouldn't be surprised at that because of that exact fact, but I mean, you're looking at every single offensive play, you're bringing in 2 new receivers and subbing out 2 other receivers, and or you're bringing in different tight end sets. It was just a lot of moving parts, and I think that leads into the disappointment part where rhythmically we couldn't find a rhythm offensively. I mean, I think he tried to establish that with the run game early on with Gray, but the thing was we weren't giving him enough touches. I mean, it was very
Well, the offensive line was not.
offensive
opening
line
up the
wasn't
holes
producing
that you needed
exactly.
to.
So
to
I
do
mean,
that.
I shouldn't be surprised, but I am disappointed in the offensive line play again. And this is what we've said. The last 4 years, 4 or 5 years with this team is. We've produced amazingly good offensive line talent. However, it takes them, 3 to 4 games to get into a groove and into a rhythm and figure out exactly what
Do
they're
you think
supposed
that's
to be
something
doing.
that maybe I don't follow football enough to know this, but it seems unique to OU. It seems like a lot of other teams everyone has a difficulty getting started. They're working kinks out, but it really seems like we are slower than most, and then get better than most in the offensive line. We start from a lower base, and then we get to a higher plateau, and maybe a peak throughout the season.
How often does it? I mean, how often do we talk about, like, in camp, and especially a lot of the fans? I mean, we've heard from is how often does it take for us to name starters at positions?
That's
I
true.
mean, how often do we give these guys the confidence that you're going to be the guy and you're going to be what I want?
Maybe it's a Lincoln
going
Riley
forward.
style. I don't know.
It's
interesting.
I don't understand the offensive substitutions at wide receiver that we've been doing recently, because I feel like if you've got 2 or 3 guys that you know are the best receiver of the team, Mims should come out when he needs a rest. But you shouldn't be playing first down, second down, and swapping out third, or play first, come out for second, come back in third, unless there's some major positional mismatch with whoever the coverage person is. But why should Hazelwood come out?
Right.
If you want to do the same 3 guys for a series, and then if you punt or score, then the next series you switch those guys out. But running 2 to 3 receivers in and out every play or every other play, the rhythm thing that Connor mentioned is a big problem.
It is a concern. The only thing I can think in their defense is they're thinking strategically that it's difficult to defend against, because whatever your scheme is, let's say that you're really concerned about, and as I think you should be, receivers like Mims and Hazelwood, and potentially Mario Williams, potentially some of these other guys, and you're trying to put your thin defense, align them in a certain way, then if we go and do a substitution, that really throws off your ability to do that. It seems like you could just switch the side of the field they're on or something. That doesn't necessarily mean to me that you put a weaker player in.
Right.
So I don't really understand it. But
and it's
maybe
not a
there's some
fitness
strategy
issue.
for that. No, it's not. They're not tired.
Right.
That is strange.
Well, you're running guys out there who aren't even on, and I get we're in COVID times and whatever, but you're running guys out there who aren't even on the depth chart for those positions sometimes.
That was
It
strange.
makes no sense to me whatsoever.
So I guess we'd have to look and see when they're doing that in regards to what the positioning of the game was. Maybe they're doing it when they've got a lot more confidence, and then when the game got tight, they stopped that, and it just happened to get to a position where the game was difficult when it shouldn't have. I noticed today on ESPN's win prediction probability, guess what the lowest position we got to in the entire game was, our probability of winning the game. It started at like 90%.
I would say probably
63%.
It barely touched 80% for just a brief
Even
moment.
when they recovered the ball with 2 minutes to go, down by 5.
I think it was about that time.
Wow.
Yeah. And then when we stopped them, it quickly went back up. I thought that was it didn't feel to me like that.
It didn't feel to me like it
It
was
felt like it was
63%.
about a 60% chance maybe when they recovered
Yeah,
that
so I was like,
onside kick.
so how do you guys feel about that? I mean, I had to get up. I got up from my seat.
I had to stand up.
I mean, it was tough.
And so I guess that for me that would be part of my most surprising, is that we were in that kind of a position. Although we've been there lots of times recently where we're surviving an onside kick, but when that happened, I thought, this is just ridiculous and awful. What a turn of events that we're in this position. And I thought, and I think they did, we need to be ultra aggressive on defense, because the worst thing that can happen is if we give up a slow developing score and they are able to bleed 2 minutes off and score the winning touchdown. We need the ball back to have a chance. You might as well. And they did. They were very aggressive. So it was good to see. I guess that was a surprise to me that they got to an intelligent scheme to put themselves in a good position, that your risk return positioning is good. If you get scored on, you've got enough time to recover, and obviously if you stop them, which we did, then you're in a great position. But how did you feel when we did not get, which I didn't understand it. I
was shocked by the fact we didn't.
How did we not recover the
So
onside kick?
so you were on that. You were on the side of the field that they were kicking towards.
I was in the north end zone.
So how did that
It wasn't
play out?
an unusual
Was it,
onside kick.
Right, so he
kinda just
laid
went
the
up there-
ball out. He laid the ball out on
top of
the
the tee.
horizontal side. He didn't lay it vertically.
Right.
So was it a weird spin? What happened?
He literally just kicked it towards a hole in the recovering team.
Yeah, that's
And
what I
we
saw
just-
too. And then
and
I
when
saw
When it bounced,
and
it kind of spun to the left, away from the nearest.
it looked like they were
recoverer.
confused about which one was going to recover it.
Yeah.
Instead of just jumping
Just
on the
going.
ball.
Just going.
Whoever ended up trying to jump on the ball, actually, it was spinning away from them.
And the other guy-
because
okay.
the guy to the right of him looked to
Who
go-
should have been the guy,
trying
but
to
he was
block.
trying to block.
Right. It was a well placed kick. There was nothing tricky about it. It didn't bounce that funny.
It just seemed like
It
they
literally
didn't
just
do
got
a good
kicked in
job
the area
to me.
that nobody was looking to pick
It's
it up.
that was disappointing to me, but that's just one brief play. Of course, it's one that may be critical. I'd say the most disappointing thing to me would be Spencer Rattler's play. I wanted to give him a lot of slack, and I did early. He's not gonna be perfect. He's gonna have a lot of kinks to work out. It's an opening game, but he
Should there be a lot of kinks to work out the way he finished the season?
It's an opening game. You can give him an interception.
Did
You
we
can give
lose
him
a
bad
bunch of receivers
decisions.
in the offseason?
I'm not defending what he did.
No, and it's
I'm saying
more-
you give him a lot of slack. Everybody gets slack coming into an opening game. But I'm saying he was disappointing because as it developed, his decision making was poor.
Triple
His,
coverage, double coverage. He's throwing
just getting, here's another penalty we were trying to think of earlier before we started. The intentional grounding, which was obviously going to be intentional grounding. He threw that away like it was a practice.
and there was nobody on that half of the field.
He's got to be thinking about these things. And so it was when you look at all of them in aggregate, that's where it really gets to me that I'm very disappointed in his play and his decision making. And then just the where he put some of those passes. I'm not looking for him to be perfectly accurate, but you at some point, if you're truly the front runner going into the season for the Heisman Trophy as a quarterback, you should be putting more balls on the money.
The second interception, Stogner ran up the seam, and he threw it to his outside shoulder instead of his inside. So Stogner tried to turn and make a play on it, and it was intercepted because it was essentially overthrown in behind him.
Right. So Spencer Rattler's stat line: 30 for 39, 2 interceptions, 304 yards with 1 touchdown. That touchdown being a rushing touchdown. No passing touchdowns today. Longest throw was 50 yards and he took 1 sack. I agree. I mean, I think it's, and I've said this and I've posed my criticisms publicly. Ironically enough, he worries me. I mean, I think he's a good player. I think he looks to do too much too often, and he doesn't take what defenses give him.
He's
a lot.
just in his third year, and he hasn't had a lot of playing time. And here we are in his third year,
Right.
And I think that's just showing this could be, in fact, some carryover from the fact that potentially, at least from his perspective and our perspective with him, unfortunately, Jalen Hurts was here his freshman year.
Said the same thing earlier today.
He, again, might have been better off. We might have been better off if Rattler was just thrown into the mix with no Jalen Hurts.
Well, and that's what
he was our quarterback in that down year.
That's what I told Lucas. How, and I don't want to get us too off track. How differently does that 2019 season look outside of maybe the loss at Baylor?
Right. I think actually
Truly.
we finished better.
I truly don't know. You maybe finished the same, if not better. And you have a quarterback who's been through tough road games.
You're in
with
a better
crowds.
position going into the next
Exactly.
year.
Spencer Rattler still
so.
hasn't been to stadiums with full capacity crowds. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of question marks in my opinion. And whatever, like we can give him the Heisman hype, and I think he's great. I think he's extremely accurate. I think he's a good football player. I don't know if it's gonna live up to everything that we've heard these last 3 months.
Yeah, he's got some big shoes to fill, and
It'll be interesting. And yeah, and it's a good problem to have, right? Because he's a great quarterback, and anyone will take him.
oh yeah, he's
But,
definitely the best quarterback in the Big 12.
Right. Competing for the
But
best in the
he's
nation.
not necessarily as good as he could be or should be, from my perspective.
I disagree about the Jalen Hurts year. I think we did as best as we could that season with Jalen Hurts. I think we probably would have lost the Baylor game. I don't know that it would have been. I mean, obviously more playing time for Rattler.
You mean the game that we did lose?
Is
we
a
would.
benefit.
The comeback game. Yeah.
The comeback game.
Yeah.
At Baylor.
Yeah, right. Get my years.
I don't think we win that game with Rattler. I mean, he
Maybe, but we probably don't get in that
last year-
position.
We probably don't get in that same position.
last year he got
Yeah.
benched against Texas
Right.
for playing poorly.
Yeah.
After that benching, he came back in.
He was very, very good.
Overtime game, awesome.
Yeah.
The rest of the season played very well, most games. So going into the season, I think Heisman expectations on national television have been a little lofty based on what I saw over the whole season last year. But I don't think OU fans shouldn't have been expecting him to come out today. I mean, I feel like he should have thrown for 400 yards. 3 touchdowns.
So were you
no
disappointed in
interceptions.
his play?
I was disappointed in his play.
Yeah,
Decision
okay.
making, number one.
So we're in agreement with that.
When you only have 9 incompleted passes out of 39,
Okay.
that's not horrible.
But
No.
they were
By
bad
any stretch.
incompletions.
But they were bad
They were
But
bad
2
incompletions.
interceptions. One was thrown into triple coverage.
Yep.
One was thrown behind.
Thrown
Stogner
behind.
that
With
caused
2
the
open
interception.
receivers.
And a
Yeah.
lot of short passes. A lot of short passes.
Yeah.
There was one drop today that I can remember.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
were
the
a
back-
couple
the back
of
shoulder-
drops.
the back shoulder in the
The
end
back
zone?
shoulder in the end zone, which was well
Was Mario
thrown.
Williams. That was a good
There
throw.
were 2 that he probably fired in too much velocity,
hard.
but they still should have been caught.
Yeah.
You're at OU. Catch
And
it.
that was one of those was on after we recovered the fumble. If I'm remembering right, it's when we had recovered the fumble and we settled for a field goal when we're inside the 10, which was very disappointing.
Yes.
So I guess I don't think we're really disagreeing a lot there. I just think in the long term scheme of where we are in this 5-6 year span, OU football might be better off if in 2019 Jalen Hurts is not on campus and Spencer Rattler is. I think there's a risk that you're not as good as you were in 2019, but I think we'd all welcome a different bowl outcome than getting smashed by LSU.
Yep.
We definitely would like to win the Big 12 title, and it's not to say we wouldn't. So we might be better off in 2019. I think that puts us in a lot better position in 2020 and coming into this year because he'd have more experience. But maybe not, and maybe that's just because
I mean, he was also a true
He's
freshman
limited.
that season.
yeah,
That
definitely.
season he sat.
And so what became his true freshman or his freshman year was 2020.
Right.
And so I'd rather him be a more seasoned veteran right now. I think it would help him. And we'll see. Again, it's early. It's one game. We shouldn't close the door on his opportunities quite yet. He probably is going to have a fantastic year and that's a question I was going to have, so I'll just pose it to you. At this point, right now, what we see, will Spencer Rattler be in New York in the Heisman ceremony? Yes or no?
Long pause.
Yes or no?
I'd say yes.
I say yes.
I'd say yes.
They may not even do a Heisman ceremony. It might be Zoom.
Right,
Who knows?
yeah, okay.
And so he may
Aside
not,
from
he
the
may not get a trip to
technicalities,
New York.
Will he be
technicalities and money?
will he be a finalist
He
for
will
the
be. I think
for the Heisman?
I think he should. I think he should. If he's anything less than a finalist from a talent perspective and from a stats perspective, it's a disappointing season.
Very disappointing. I
Well,
would
I
say
agree
so.
with that completely.
And
So I think-
OU is not the team that every single person in the country thought they'd be.
But
Except
so
for this
agreed.
But I would say
Over
yes.
here.
I would
We
say
agree.
yes.
But I think he will
there.
be. Do you
and
think
I
he'll
there will be a team.
a finalist? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think he'll be a finalist.
Okay. So
I'm going to tell you my most disappointing.
Yeah,
Let's see. We
yeah.
got most surprising and most disappointing.
yeah,
Most disappointing to me, aside from offensive line play, which I'm kind of used to early in the season, was
how many times can we get burned by that before we're not surprised? But still, here we
Yeah,
keep coming
exactly.
back.
The defense.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
defensive line got push on quite a few of the plays because that quarterback got destroyed a whole bunch. But they were also using 3-step drops and getting the ball out quickly.
Smart
And
play by
our
them.
linebackers and corners were
Linebacker
not
plays.
covering inside routes. They would on the sideline and they would cut in and they were boxed out by the receiver 9 times out of 10, and they were completing 10-yard passes against the corners all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like we never adjusted
to figure that out.
to having the players be on the inside of the receiver and using the sideline as an extra defender.
Right.
They just kept running and then cutting in,
Yeah.
and they're open all the time.
Yeah, bad adjustments.
And there was also, if you I like a chance to rewatch the game, but I counted at least 4 or 5 drop passes from Tulane receivers that could have gone for first downs that were well thrown.
That's
The
what
receiver
that's
just
what
There
we're
were.
talking about. We
There
said
were.
the same thing when we
Yep.
were sitting there. Is good teams catch those balls.
Yeah.
The throws on the money.
We
Throws
probably
on the
lose
money.
that game if those 4 or 5 catches are made.
yeah, that's
that they
true.
At least
dropped.
it's close. A lot more.
Now-
We
concerning,
also
for
dropped
sure.
interception.
We also, so if we catch an interception, and there's a few
very
things that
athletic
break
play
in
by Bowman.
our way that, by the same token, we could have put that game away
We'll talk
and
about my
be
cousin like that.
covering the spread pretty easily. So it could go both ways, but it did. We had the same thought that it's very concerning that you hate to rely on a mistake by the other team that other teams
Right.
won't necessarily make.
The surprising to me would have been, I thought Gray would maybe break a run. After watching him in the
Yeah.
spring game, it looked like he was really slippery in between the tackles. And I know he's playing against his own players, and they're trying not to kill each other in spring. But watching him in spring just kind of get between the tackles and just kind of turn his body sideways to get through a gap and get 15 or 20 yards on a run. I thought I would see more of that, and maybe him break the second level and have a 50-yarder or something like that. And we never saw a run go for more than 10 or 12 yards.
Yeah, running back is concerning right now. To be honest, I don't want.
Well, yeah, and we knew that going in, but now we're really concerned.
I don't want to buy into that hype. And again, I think we all expected this game to go to a place where we'd see the walk-ons get in. We'd see Knowles. We'd see Hudson.
Right.
We didn't see any of that. And unfortunately, the two guys that we do have on scholarship didn't show me anything to say. And again, this is two homers and a pessimist. So sorry, a realist. But no, at the same time, I didn't see a lot from those two guys. I mean, Kennedy Brooks is the same Kennedy Brooks, yards after contact type of guy. But
he looked a little slower to me than I remembered.
He looked slow.
How much of this running back concern and surprise is the running backs, and how much is the offensive line?
I would say it's probably 70% offensive line, 30% running back.
I think that's probably true. Yeah,
because they're really we couldn't run left hardly at all.
Right.
And we had Harrison and Murray on the left. Is that right?
You're probably right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I just don't feel like we ran left. I don't feel like we could run left.
So Kennedy Brooks had a quiet 94 yards. He had his long was 32.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a very good run.
But outside of that, Eric Gray's long was 11 yards. I mean, his average was 3 yards a carry. Kennedy Brooks was even way down. I mean, for what we're used to, 6.2 yards per carry. It's that itself is a little nerve-wracking. But again, man, I think you go with your offensive line woes there. I think so. Andrew Ram's out with COVID. You don't have your normal center, and you're having to flip guys around. I'm hoping Beanbo has done some stuff in camp and in practice to say what we saw today is not going to be a regular thing, and whom we have is not going to be the regular guys we have out there. And you figure out some sort of collective unity in being able to have that offensive line that we're known for. That's what's frustrating, I think, is we all hype this up. And maybe not us, but people around the country hype Bill Beanbo up. And I think he's a great coach.
Well, they were pretty optimistic from the little I saw about the preseason stuff. They were more optimistic this year than they've been normally. Right. And so we haven't seen it yet. Then again, it's one game. It's Tulane. That's an unknown quantity. It is. I don't want to put too much weight on this, but you look back at prior seasons when we played teams, and we've seen it both ways. Sometimes when we saw a game that looked tremendous, we win 45-6, and it turns out that was not a very good win.
Right.
Other times when we even get beat, like we got beat by TCU in 2005, TCU goes on to win 10 of their next 11 games. And then other seasons where we have teams like potentially Tulane is, where they're pretty good. And if they do indeed end up being one of the fourth or fifth best teams we play all year, we'd look back at this differently and maybe say, wow, our offensive line actually is really good. They were just going up against a very good defensive line. We don't know.
It's very possible.
You don't think so?
I'm going to be a realist and say no on that. I mean,
so.
If they finish
I guess it's realistic, or maybe that's just taking a pessimistic take on it.
Or whatever conference.
So let's look at Tulane's schedule. I mean, I'd like to see whom they have.
They have UAB. They have Houston. I know because we're season ticket holders.
Tulane, yeah.
Yes.
So Tulane has Ole Miss in 2 weeks.
So that'll be a gauge.
At Ole Miss.
At Ole Miss, that'll be a
if
great.
Ole Miss beats them by 14,
gauge.
then we should be embarrassed.
They've got Houston.
No,
whatever.
Not necessarily. You get a game like 14. If they beat them 45-0, we should be embarrassed.
Well, Tulane has to be ridiculously embarrassing then.
Tulane's schedule.
So that's the difference between embarrassing and ridiculously embarrassing. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know that many grades of embarrassing.
Tulane's schedule actually is. I mean, outside of their next week's matchup against Morgan State is pretty.
Don't sleep on Morgan State.
You don't want to sleep on the Bears.
They are monsters.
So they've got Ole Miss the week after. They've got UAB, who's a relatively good team, powered like a pretty octane offense. East Carolina, Houston, SMU at SMU, Cincinnati, UCF, Tulsa, South Florida, and Memphis. I mean, their American Athletic Conference schedule doesn't actually play well for them.
So they are American Athletic Conference.
And will they actually get any home games? And at what point will they get any home games?
Exactly.
That's
So
the
I
question
mean, you get a couple gauges there. Again, I don't think you use this at all as a barometer of where we're at.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can.
Well, what we're looking for, I think what we're looking for, which is realistic and it's kind of cliched,
It
but you're
sounds
looking
like two
for
homers that don't want to look at the realistic.
No, we're saying that
effect
you
of
can.
what happened today.
It's a sample size of one. If you take that and you put too much emphasis on it, you're going to draw crazy conclusions you can't support. What you're looking for here is the cliched improvement from week 1 to week 2, and you're trying to gauge how good this team actually is. When we get 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 games into the season, we'll look back and understand who we actually faced in this Tulane team. They definitely were a team playing with a lot of heart. I saw a lot of really good athletes out there. When I watched a little bit of the Kansas game last night, where Kansas barely beat South Dakota, those look like a couple of high school teams. This did not look like a high school opponent that we were facing today. So it'll be interesting to see
a little bit
how they actually stack up.
And a little bit looks like, it looks like a little bit of overconfidence on our part as well.
I'd agree. Yeah.
I don't like to. I hate, honestly. I hate posing that as a thing. Like you guys are expecting too much of yourselves. But defensively, Lucas, you mentioned it yourself. We look bad on the interior in terms of our secondary. There was a lot of routes that were ran inside that we could not cover, and we've had concerns at the safety and the linebacker position. I think I'm not worried about anything over the top. I'm really not. There's some stuff.
No, I'm not either.
There's some stuff that got completed that I'm frustrated about, and there's some stuff that Tulane should have completed that they didn't. That
we had busted coverages, but we didn't have.
More worried about.
Can't keep up with the guy downfield. Can't get our head around.
There was
a
couple of missed assignments, and from what we've seen in the past, I'll take a couple of missed assignments over some we don't look like we know what we're doing.
They scored 2 touchdowns in the north end zone by just flaring out the running back, and nobody picked him up.
Nobody picked him up.
Yeah,
2 of the touchdowns.
well, and
the first 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and you notice on that they're moving people over with motion, and that is a missed assignment.
Totally.
Someone's not saying, "Hey,
Right.
grab that guy."
And
That's a miss, and that's
One
very
sweep,
fixable.
They did that, and
That's
we
super
missed
fixable.
an assignment. We didn't understand how to cut in and fill a gap on that 2-point conversion. Was a brilliant looking play where they ran that reverse.
The 2-point conversion was beautiful.
And talk about another getting bailed out when the quarterback falls down on the other 2-point conversion. That it wasn't necessarily critical, but I guess what would they have been down? They would have been down 3 points. That makes a big difference.
Points.
When you know you're trying to prevent a team from even getting into field goal range.
Yeah.
That's when I've seen us actually get burned for touchdowns a lot.
Right.
So,
We also got bailed out by a flag where the corner was holding Hazelwood on the
well,
interception.
let's talk about refs. That gets us into the ref discussion.
Right. That was the correct call the whole way. I don't know that Rattler should have
But it was
thrown
a
the ball
terrible
there
pass. It
because
was a
he
terrible
had,
pass.
There was,
Terrible.
It was a
stupid
there was
pass.
the
Terrible
safety that
pass.
intercepted it was obviously coming over
Right.
pre-throw.
Well,
and so it probably shouldn't have been thrown. But Hazelwood,
It's covered
not
too,
being
basically.
held, probably.
And you floated a
catches the
ball on it. Maybe he'd have a battle
He-
for
he
the
would have
ball.
fought for it.
But keep in mind the way it was thrown. It was well underthrown, which is not what you're trying to do when you want to have a jump ball. And it was almost like an inside shoulder throw, which makes no sense.
So
with the safety
With
rolling
the
that
safety,
way.
and then the safety's
But
rolling
see,
that
so we're
way.
sitting there the whole time. We see the safety all the way. So
Right.
you have man to man, and then you have one safety over the top on the which for us would have been the right side.
Right.
For offensively would have been the left side. And it's all the way. Like you see, that's the coverage.
He's watching
Yeah,
the-
Hazelwood
Yeah.
is not going to go
Yeah.
1-on-one there.
That was very
You're
clear
not gonna
from
let him do that.
the end zone club seats that we had. Club seats, I'll have a little digression. Excellent. End zone seats, awful. You can't see
End zone seats is the
anything.
only way
I
to
had a
go.
great
Horrible
view
seats from
of
the
the
view.
goalpost, and that's all I
End
could
zone is
see.
the only
having
seat
to
to sit
shift
in.
my head
Did you see the plays
around.
available
The
from
curvature
behind?
of the earth
Everybody
meant I
knows
couldn't
that.
tell when the end zone on the other side of the field
I mean, you don't have
started.
depth perception. I don't know what to tell
It
you.
was awful. It was totally awful. It was brutal hot. We need to add that. But does any of that excuse how bad the refs were today? Were the refs?
Maybe they were so hot that they were delirious.
Maybe so.
Because there was a play. There was 2 plays in the first half
Mm-hmm.
that were back-to-back holding / pass interference, however you want to determine it. That neither were called, and they showed the replay. And one was a fade route, I believe, to Hazelwood in the corner. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And we were on the 10-yard line.
Yeah, and
And
he held him
picked,
from
the
about
corner
the
picked
7
him up at
in.
the 8
Yeah.
and held him all the way past 2 yards into the goal line.
Yes.
Let him go right before the ball got there, and the ref just didn't notice
That was
apparently
stunningly
the previous 9 yards of holding.
Yeah. I thought that, so I try to look to be balanced and look for when we get a beneficial bad call. I don't none of those really occur to me. I can't recall any, but maybe you guys can
The
think
unnecessary
of one.
roughness seemed ridiculous to me. Originally
Well,
called
that did not
targeting.
go in our
I
way.
thought that would be overturned. Watching it live,
Clearly, so
seeing the
yeah.
replay, they kind of did like a freeze frame replay, and it looked like the defender was just standing his ground when the quarterback slid into him.
Right.
And
The only
lost
way
his
I
helmet.
thought it might be targeting would be definitionally targeting because he lowers his head. But really, that is allowed, as I understand it, when two players are colliding in a tackle situation. And like you say, I don't
did
see
not launch
how
himself.
he didn't launch
he was
himself. I don't
stationary.
see how it was
Well, and
unnecessary roughness. It's almost like they were gonna just. Well, I guess that's not reviewable.
Yeah,
And
so
they-
that was the thing is the fact that they called it after the play was
Which makes
what,
no sense because
Which
it
makes no sense.
occurred
no,
during
it,
the
yeah,
play.
it makes no sense.
'Cause he's
But
tackling.
And there was
Once-
holding. There was offensive holding on that, so it should
Yep.
have been on both sides.
Yeah.
Well, I
which
think
would
they
have
did
just been replay the down.
so once it no, you can't.
No, you
so
can't replay.
So the
No,
the
if it would have been called correct, like
yes, if it would have been called correctly, yeah, it's an
Yeah.
offsetting
right.
penalty, and they
Yeah.
replay it
offsetting
down.
penalty.
Yes.
But the fact that
it
it was
wasn't
almost-
either
yeah.
way, it wasn't a it shouldn't have been a penalty. But if they were going to call us a penalty, it would have been during the
During
during the
play,
play,
not
it
after the
offsets,
and
and
it
it's
would have
right.
been offset in
Exactly.
first and 10 again.
Unless there's something I don't know in terms of a nuance that when you get into a targeting situation that automatically becomes after the play, which I've never.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm trying to be generous here. I can't figure it out. That seemed like just a botched call, and it wasn't as bad. It wouldn't have been as bad of a targeting call that I've ever seen in terms of a bad call, but it would have been a bad one, and I'm glad they overturned it. I
feel
can't
like
think of anything we got benefited from.
Referee-wise, I think if we had perfect refereeing in this game, would the outcome have been different? I think we kicked a field goal on that play I was referring
Yes,
to earlier.
we did. Mhm.
And
That
it
would
was like
have
a
been
short 27
very likely
yarder.
a touchdown,
That would have
yeah.
been first and goal to 2. We
Yeah.
probably get 7 points instead of 3 on that one.
Right. Right.
So we're not sweating it out.
Right.
At the very end on the onside
Right.
kick and all that.
Right.
We win 44 or whatever to 35.
Maybe, yeah.
But I mean,
No, I don't think officiating made the difference.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe cut the officials some slack that they're rusty. I don't know. I don't think I buy that either.
Their heads are spinning with that.
So I don't know. If I'm not an expert on either officiating or in scoring refs in a game, I just know what I get emotional about, and of course it's going to be one-sided. I'm a homer that way for sure. I'll admit, but I think we all are. It's hard not to be. But so all that said, I think the officiating was not perfect, but I would grade it as pretty average.
I would give it a C minus.
Yeah, I'm trying to find our.
Well,
penalties.
I give it a C minus, but then again, I don't know if there is A level officiating in college football.
Yeah, that's true.
In general.
You watch NFL games and you definitely see
You
a
definitely
huge
see a big
difference
difference.
between NFL
Yeah.
level and college.
Yeah.
But obviously you've got 32 teams, so you've got 16 games of officials as opposed to
Doesn't seem like
60
it would be
officials,
that
60 games of
impossible to
officials.
find that many good people that could do the job well. I don't
Right.
know. It seems like I'm
Put
going
me
to
out-
lay this on the
put me out there.
doorstep of the NCAA and the conferences who are messing this up one way
I don't
or
want
the
to do
other.
all that running, so I would not be a ref.
No, you wouldn't be good for the running.
I could be an instant replay.
Park
You'd be
ranger-
good at throwing a flag on someone
park
and telling
ranger
them how
stuff.
wrong
Yeah,
they
you'll
are.
park ranger it, dude.
So let's look at our pick review. You got the picks over there. We made some picks. We always make picks. We've been doing this for 20
Yeah, so why don't you
plus
break,
years.
why don't you break down just the
All right.
categories? really
So the
quick and
categories
talk
are OU's final score, OU's total offensive yards for the game, the first OU player to score, and that's in any score, not just a touchdown, the time of the first OU score, the longest play of the day, which would include any scoring play like a field goal, would not include a punt or a kickoff, but any other type of play.
What about a defensive score?
Absolutely, a defensive
Absolutely
score would
counts.
count. A long run, a long pass, a fumble that you pick up and run
Kick
50
return
yards,
for a
whatever.
touchdown.
Absolutely, kick return for a touchdown. Yes.
Yes.
And then the last OU player to score a touchdown. So on OU score, I had 56. Lucas had 45 and Connor had 52. Obviously, with OU scoring 40, Lucas was the winner there. On offensive yards, I was actually the one that was pessimistic, I guess. I had 450. I thought I was realistic. I was the realist here on this
Yep,
one.
you nailed it.
Connor had 527. Lucas had 523.
was
First player,
430.
none of us had 523. What did I say?
It was 430 was the actual. You didn't give the actual.
Oh, I did. I thought it did at the front. or I read it to
You said
myself.
450, and then you said, but it's actually 430 was the.
Right.
Yeah,
So
you
I was.
outraged
So who
yourself.
won? Who
You won.
Oh, I won. I was closest.
You just never gave the list.
I was
what the
closest?
actual yardage was.
Okay,
I
but-
don't want to have them look it up.
I'm
to
sure.
see,
I'd appreciate them looking up when they see that. They'll see that I
because they only
won.
missed it by 20 yards.
So the first player was obviously Rattler to score. None of us had that, but that's kind of just a crapshoot on who's going to be the first one.
That's really surprising. So yeah, I was
Time.
surprised at Rattler. We got
Well,
screwed out.
actually, we got
So
screwed out of that one.
Eric Gray scored the first touchdown.
He
They
100%
did
scored.
not
There's a
ref-
bad
they did not
referee.
review
Which
it.
that's right.
Horrible referee.
Connor did
Bad
pick
referee.
Gray, and that was bad refereeing. I felt like they didn't even review it and give it a fully due review.
And it felt
They
like
just gave it
Lincoln
a-
let the time run down because I feel like they
Giving
didn't
them a
snap it until
chance.
about 5 seconds left because
Yeah.
he was waiting for the upstairs call
Exactly.
down.
That really disappointed me. It's
he
a scoring
clearly got
play.
in
You should
in the
call
south
that.
end zone.
That's the kind of stuff that really disappoints me when the officials at every level of that process, the review guys in the booth, whoever it is, when they mess that up.
From my seats in the north end zone, that play happened in the south end zone.
From
and
your
I could
view
tell he
in
got
the north end zone, that was in Texas, is where that happened.
I could see that he got in.
So, I don't think you can see all the way to Dallas. But the time of first score was 5:59. That was disappointing. Obviously, we want to score before that time, especially when we get the ball first. So I had 12:04. Connor had 12:19. Lucas had 12:39. So among the three of us, I'm actually the winner in that group. But we're all really close together. Longest play was a little disappointing at 56. I think that you're looking for, and it was a field goal. You're looking for a breakout offense to have. It's usually going to be an offensive play, and hoping to have something in the 60s, I think.
How about Gabe Burkitz though, man?
That was solid.
4 for 5. It has three field goals over 50 yards.
But in the clutch,
Makes
when
it
he needs
26,
one,
and then needs a 31-yarder to put the game away, and he misses.
can't do it.
That's
Can't do
frustrating.
It is frustrating.
It's super frustrating. You got to be better.
I nailed the last player to score a touchdown, Mario Williams. Just also kind of a luck of the draw. You guys had some
He's going to
pretty
be good.
reasonable
He's going to be
picks.
good. Mario Williams
Both
gonna
of you
be real
picking
good.
Hudson, thinking that we'd be in a position where Hudson would be playing, but of course he wasn't because we weren't.
We had one long throw, the Rattler to Mims, 50-yarder.
50 yards.
He dove and just
Yes,
barely missed
barely
the end
missed
zone.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they
Mims-
call that a touchdown originally?
They did. They
They
called it a
did,
touchdown.
and
They
he was
reviewed
out
it.
of bounds.
They reviewed it.
his-
Mims finished.
So
with
they
one-
reviewed that
yeah.
touchdown and
Yeah,
took it back, but
yeah.
they didn't
He
review
reviewed
the
the
one
one
that got
to
incorrect
give it to us.
when
Exactly.
Gray should have scored.
Exactly.
Mims
I hate the
finished with
inconsistency
with
there.
117 today. He played well.
Mims is good.
I
Mims
thought
is really
Darby
good.
was a surprise.
Yeah.
He is
For a guy that I didn't
quiet surprise.
realize would he really even get much playing time today. He had, I think it was 3 for 26.
Mm-hmm.
Three,
And I think
three,
one of them was
three
a third
touches
down
for
conversion.
26. Yeah, and that one was a big third down.
Mario Williams threw a pass today.
We haven't had enough.
Yeah, Mario
yeah.
Williams-
Okay, let's talk about that. I was just about to say we
Mario
haven't had
Williams
enough
is a
discussion,
1,000. He's a 1,000.
disagreements or kind of spicy moments. Let's
I've
talk
got a
about
spicy
that.
moment. I feel like Caleb
Well,
Williams.
let's talk about that one first. The way you just brought up with that play, because my impression of that play at first was that is Lincoln Riley getting too cute by half. You're in a position to run a play. Your offense is clicking. That play sets up really, really nicely. And then at the tail end of it, you end up throwing a pass, which did get caught, but for a minimal amount of gain. It was poorly thrown, and there was a defender there
Covering
in the mix,
Hazelwood.
covering. Then I thought about it for literally just another 30 seconds and said, actually, no, I'm going to give him not just a pass on that. I like the fact that there was a pass in that play because what that does is we're in a good position then. We didn't need a trick play to beat Tulane, or we didn't need to have that reverse as it started out materialize into 15, 20 yards. But what we do need is for Texas to have to watch that film and know that when we run that play, there's a good chance that ball's getting thrown.
Yeah.
And so Iowa State and whoever else is out
Keep 'em
there
honest.
needs to be honest, and they can't just commit to that reverse. And next time, hopefully, that guy running the ball realizes I can just run the ball. I don't have to
I
throw
don't
the
have to
ball.
I feel like
and he
Lincoln's
can
done
get
that
a lot of yards
every year that he's been here, even as an OC.
You're right.
We've
You're
run
right.
trick plays against lesser competition
to keep people honest.
to keep people honest.
I agree.
And it works
I've seen it.
most of the time.
So I will hand it to him.
And I
But-
think it's another
but-
thing to
Although I
practice.
do think
But
he
he
gets too
dips
cute
in,
by half.
he dips into that way too often
In the
against those
wrong
better
spots.
opponents.
Yeah.
In much the wrong spots.
But I give it to him on that. I think that was a second level chess type of strategy that I thought was good. Now give me your other spicy moment.
My spicy moment was Caleb Williams comes in and runs his version of a belldozer. Don't know what it's going to call. Anybody have any ideas for what that play that should be called? So picture Landry Jones comes out, Blake Bell comes in,
Right.
runs the belldozer.
Well, those guys aren't eligible. If they were to come in and do that, it'd be
It's the
a
same
penalty.
exact play. He takes a snap, he takes a step to the side, looks for the hole, dives in for a touchdown.
The Caleb Clasher.
How many times should we have used that play during the game? Because we had a couple 4th and 1s, one that we were unsuccessful on.
Right.
I feel like
That's a
we
good
should
point.
have run that probably 3 times during this game. One, I think Kennedy
a real
Brooks
good
was a
point.
4th and 1, and he broke 15-yarder maybe or 12-yarder,
After
which
the timeout,
that worked
yeah,
out.
after- or
But
after
you could have
the
also
quarter.
run the Caleb Williams and
I
got
don't-
the 3 yards.
So that's the
holding
thing.
off the
I
field,
don't know why.
and brought Rattler back in.
Yeah, if you're not going to run that relatively consistently, I don't know why you even bring that out at all. To
I mean,
be completely honest.
to,
with you.
to me,
Yeah,
he
I
looks.
kind of agree.
He almost looks like a Cam Newton out there, where, I mean, it was obviously designed that he was just going to fake the handoff and go
I
into the
want
end
the
zone.
I want the pod to know.
But-
I am pro Caleb Williams.
Oh, absolutely.
I think everybody.
Everybody.
Like
is.
I'm
Even
I'm
as a realist, I'm pro.
I'm
Caleb
so
Williams.
pro Caleb Williams. Like
why would you have to qualify?
I feel like
all these SOBs.
we should have
who
run
think-
that play, even for the 40-yard line, and it's 3rd and 1. Throw it in there, but only because our offensive line wasn't creating enough push for the running backs.
Right.
And we
Right.
always run out of the shotgun.
No, I like that approach.
I
And
feel like it should have been.
I like getting work
utilized
on
maybe 2 more
plays like that.
times.
So if you look back to 2017, the last time we played Tulane, if I'm not mistaken, in that year we ran in a guy who was a backup who was pretty interesting every time he came in, Kyler Murray. And when he would come in sparingly, he'd come into situations like that and run the ball. And you could tell he was fast, but honestly, he was tripping over his own feet. His helmet
ahead of
looked too
himself.
big for his
Ahead of
body.
himself.
He was ahead of himself. I think, and obviously he turned into the greatness that he was, and probably had all the greatness there to be able to actualize it in 2017. He just wasn't given the opportunity.
Right.
So I think if we would have played him more in 2017, that would have added just another wrinkle in that fantastic offense. This is another example of that. I'd like to see that play worked in so that there's experience with it and it is more of a rhythm, not something they've done a few times in practice or maybe even quite a few times in practice, but only a couple times in a game, and games are different than practice.
It'd be fun with 3rd and short and 4th and short even. I mean, with the field in front of him, not
Absolutely.
the end zone in front of him.
Absolutely.
I mean, if he pulls that ball back and you can see
Now-
an arm talent there.
What I'd really like to see,
Man.
and they did not do it repeatedly, I would like to see Spencer in prior years, Spencer Rattler off the field when they do that play. I don't understand why in any way, because
You waste a player.
obviously they didn't respect it. Defenses
You know
never
they're
responded
not
to
going
it.
to throw the ball to him.
They
You
know they're
waste
not
the
going to
skill
throw the ball to
position.
him, and he's not a threat. It's not like he's super fast. It'd be different if it's Kyler Murray over there that he might actually beat you deep. You're not going to throw the ball to him or at him. You're probably not going to run some trick play where he drops back 3 yards and you fire it over there and he fires it deep. None of that's going to happen.
Right.
Get another guy in there that can block.
I mean, since the invention of the Wildcat, between college and pro, I could probably count on one hand how many times
You
I've
can't
actually seen him
count.
throw it to the quarterback in any instance.
Right, exactly. In fact,
in
it
the
seems
last
like
15 years of
they
Wildcat.
tried to do that in the first 15 and realized
I've-
this
yeah.
does not
Right.
work.
I've got my complaints about Lincoln Riley trying to run the Wildcat. He doesn't teach his running backs how to actually run it. I mean,
That's
or
true.
His running backs don't appreciate how to run it. I mean, I've been watching guiltily 2016 Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine games, and those running backs, Joe Mixon specifically, acts like 8 times out of 10 times he should keep the ball, and he's not reading a defense.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
He's
think
not a
that's
read a
the-
defense.
that's
I've
the-
never seen.
That's the call from Lincoln Riley.
Right, from 26.
It's just the fake handoff.
Right, from 2016
Right.
to now, I
Right.
haven't seen.
Not fooling anybody.
I'm sure
Right,
there is.
exactly.
I'm sure there are examples, but I haven't seen many examples, if any, of us gaining more than 4 yards
But
on a
there's
wild
zero
card
examples of us throwing the ball to,
Exactly.
to Baker Mayfield lined up. At
The
that-
only-
at
the
as
only
there
sideline.
should be.
Right.
Just get him off the
Right,
field.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only pass
So-
I ever saw to throw to Baker Mayfield was a double reverse to CD Lamb.
Right.
CD Lamb in the Rose Bowl where Baker's
Right.
wide open.
Yeah, and that's a totally different type
That's
of play.
completely
That's
different.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that when you're looking at the Wildcat in any of those situations, as I remember that so painfully, so many times, Joe Mixon, P. Ryan's getting the ball and just being totally awkward with it and taking so long
Trying to wait.
play out whatever they were trying to play out. It never made sense to me.
Right.
In my mind, what you've done when you take the quarterback out, if you're smart, you get another blocker in there, and now hat to hat, you've got an advantage. And just tell him, when you get the ball, you're a running back.
Right.
Do the running back thing and just find the hole and go. But
which is what Caleb Williams did on his version of the Bulldozer.
And so maybe if we see, and that's where the Bulldozer was so amazingly successful,
having
even though he was a passing quarterback.
Having the arm talent that Caleb Williams has,
They've got to respect
you
it.
could use that at the 40-yard line on a 3rd and 1, and know that he could do the Tebow thing where you take the step forward, you throw it back, and if it's an incomplete pass, it's still 4th and 1 at the 40, and then you just do the normal.
I bet we see that this year.
He buries ahead and gets 2 yards.
That'll be a prediction that I'll make right now going forward. I have next week predictions we're going to talk about in a second, so I'll say at some point in the season we'll start to see that deployed, where both you see him keep the ball as well as pass the ball in certain situations, and that is a heck of a threat. That's an incredible threat. You know it's short yardage. As a defense, you're trying to commit to prevent the 1 yard, 2 yard, which is very powerful on 3rd down, not as powerful on 4th down, because you know if we give up this, they get a 1st down. I'd rather give up a 1st down than a touchdown, so I've got to be honest. And if there's receivers out there, whoever, a tight end, I've got to respect the fact that this guy could pull up and hit them for a pass. So I hope we see it. I'll predict that we're going to see it.
A very kooky thing that I feel like I didn't like was Braden Willis wearing number 9. Normally numbers don't affect me, but he looked skinnier in that jersey for some reason.
Who took number 81?
I don't know if he's lost weight or he's just in better shape, but he didn't seem as thick as he did last year, and he plays H-back.
Yeah, he looked a lot more like a
running back. Yeah,
he looked like a back.
Which maybe they plan on utilizing as a running back some. I don't know what he did in high school, but.
So you don't like that aesthetically? Do you think that it's a strategic or tactical disadvantage?
It made him look smaller to where I don't feel like if he is smaller, he wouldn't be as good in the H-back position.
So you're worried that he actually may be smaller, too small, not that he looks small.
But I don't know if it's because of the jersey.
Because I think if he looks small,
I don't think
that's
it's
what I don't
jersey.
know.
No, he looked
because single-digit deals do that.
No,
Braden
if he lost
smaller
20 pounds in the offseason,
he looks smaller.
Then he needs to put some back on because we need, obviously, with the offensive line playing like they did today. Stogner's not a big blocking tight end. Do we have another tight end on the roster? I don't remember seeing anybody else out there. We just had the H-back.
Don't we have one more? No, I guess not.
Someone's son.
Yeah, someone.
Okay.
And
which he played in
one more. There's one more.
Red
There's another.
So the guy coming in is a recruit that's such an enormous phenom at tight end.
Yeah.
He's a recruit. He's not here on campus yet. Okay.
So I feel like we've lost at the tight end position. Stogner had what? Did he have 1 catch or 2 today?
He had 3 catches.
3 catches.
Three catches.
One of them was really good at over the middle thing. That's beautiful.
Austin Stogner had 3 targets, 3 receptions, 36 yards, longest play.
Well, he can't have 3 targets because the interception was thrown.
Unless they're saying, look at Mims. How many times? Well, he was not going to be 100% because he was the other potential receiver.
Mims had 7 targets, 5 of those completed for 117.
The second interception was clearly being thrown at Stogner.
Yeah, I think it was clearly going to Stogner. Yeah. But I don't think it was going to Mims.
I feel like we need H-backs to be thicker to help with the blocking.
Maybe so.
And we really didn't run a Brooks Gray scheme very much.
Late,
I could think of 1 or 2 times that they did off the top of my head.
Yeah, late they were split backs that were doing that.
But it seems like that would be beneficial when your offensive line isn't playing as well because then the defense doesn't know which running back's going to get it. When you have
some of that's
fullback
hindsight
back there and the running back, you know the running back's going to get the ball.
Some of that's hindsight. It's hard to know as you're developing the game that your offensive line is just not playing well. Some of it you see, some of it you realize only after the clock ends.
Did Spencer not look like he was a little happy feet getting out of the pocket today to you guys?
I didn't really notice.
So I thought every time he had something,
not disagreeing. I just didn't.
No, I thought every time he rolled to the right, or had something to the right, he would way too early. He'd either have a lane. I saw multiple examples of him having a lane up front, but decided to take a rollout to the right of pressure and try to make something on the run, mobily.
Yeah.
I think he looks downfield the whole time, and he rarely looks to run. Mm-hmm. And on some of those, when it's 3rd and 4.
Well, he did that.
He did in the second half. He did go ahead and take the running
One time
lane.
he went and passed the ball, which was completely dumb.
He threw one to Mims.
And he should have just ran.
5 yards.
I can run. You can run that far. There's a defender there. Don't bother.
Yeah.
That was strange.
That could be an incompletion anytime instead of just tucking it and getting the 5 yards on a 3rd and 4.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that was frustrating. So let's move on to, unless you got more spicy moments, let's move on to poll predictions. Where do you think we'll be after this week? Obviously, there's games playing and transpiring. But based on what little we know here at 5, 6 o'clock, with most of the other teams winning as they should, we got the Georgia-Clemson matchup. Most likely the winner of that game, I think, will jump us. So
Yes,
I'll
I
jump
agree.
in with the poll prediction.
So
I think
too.
we'll be third.
Absolutely. I'd say 4.
Yeah, I could see 3-4. The winner of Georgia and Clemson goes to 2.
Mm-hmm.
I need to.
I mean, Ohio State didn't look that good, so they wouldn't
that's
jump
the
us.
iffy one. I mean, I guess.
No, Ohio
But
State
they look
was a
better
mixed
against.
message.
But they look better against they go away to a Power 5, and they go away in conference and they win.
Right.
So.
Well, that's a good question. Do you think
could
Minnesota
see
is
the
better
AP.
than Tulane?
Yeah, I do. I
don't know.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't know. Minnesota didn't look real good to me.
No, they didn't look good. I'm not saying they look
I
good.
mean, they
but
did lose a
think
running
they're
back in the third
probably
quarter.
better.
That
I think
was
they're better.
That's
literally
true.
their
It was
entire
doing well.
team.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
if you put Minnesota up against Tulane, I think they probably win 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think Minnesota's quite that good, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think Tulane's going to be that good.
That's where
I
I'm
mean,
leaning
We're-
as well.
if we talked about the schedule earlier, if Tulane loses 5 games this season,
So I
Let's
think
look at
that
that
makes
schedule
today
again.
more
Well,
worrying.
I think Tulane had 2 spectrums that they could meet today. They could have met the we're battered and we're having to travel around and get put on buses and planes and have to come here and play, and we're just gonna play
and we're worried
kinda
about
lay
our
down.
home, we're
Yeah.
worried about campus
Or
or our family.
Yeah, or you get on the other side of the spectrum. It's like, hey, we're battered, we're down. Like, let's
Right.
come together as a team. Let's unite and let's play this game.
that
And
quarterback
I think,
played his heart
and
out.
I think
I'll
that's
tell you
Yes, he
that.
did.
exactly.
Yes,
I
he
think
did.
that's exactly where they landed. And I think, again, I don't think you're going to see that out of Tulane, especially
He
that
took
sort of
some
audacity.
major
again.
shots, and he was
Yeah.
still, even to that last drive, he was a half a yard short of a first down to continue that drive to go beat Oklahoma
Right.
in their stadium.
Yeah.
And he was getting demolished.
Yeah.
I'll say they'll
On a
lose
lot-
4 games
a
this
lot of
year.
those plays.
Tulane,
Yeah, I'll say they'll lose just
Ole
4
Miss,
games.
OU. I think they get beat by Cincinnati, and I think
UCF?
I think they probably get beat by UCF
Yeah.
at least. And I think Tulsa's a good game. I think Tulsa challenges them. For
Well, I would
sure.
say that there's a chance.
Well, Tulsa looked terrible.
I would say there's a chance they win or lose every one of the games going forward,
Absolutely.
except Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think
Now, some of these, there's not a chance. They're going to beat Morgan State. They're going to beat. I don't know. Some of these other teams, it's kind of. I don't know enough about these teams.
it's up in the air. Yeah.
SMU might be actually
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
how good would it be to have Frank Calcaterra on this squad?
No,
right now?
SMU should challenge for their conference for sure, in my opinion.
so
For
His
everything they
training
have.
staff
talk about
is
something
there.
about that I've been talking about this week in just a second. But anyway, I'm going to guess an expected loss of 4 games for them this year total. Maybe I'm wrong.
So
but
what's your
anyway,
expe-
I
what's
think
your-
they're pretty
what's your
good.
expected
I think
poll?
they're better than I thought they were coming into
What's
this
your
game.
OU
Maybe
expected
that's
poll this week? after
so. Poll prediction is 3. No,
Three?
3. Yeah,
Okay,
I
sorry.
think there'll be 3.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I've
going to
been.
go 4 because I think
Okay.
a team
I
that
think
was
4 as well.
maybe 5 or 6 that just wins by expectedness, like whatever the spread was, if they get closer to covering, because we obviously had 31-point spread going into this game,
Yeah.
and we won by the skin of our teeth. I think the pollsters will be like, well, Oklahoma's defense isn't as hyped as they kept
What we
telling us it
said,
was going to be,
yeah.
and their offense didn't look good in the
Isn't.
second half. So we're going to go ahead and bump them down to like 5.
So
And
Clemson-
maybe that's great motivation for our guys to play a little harder.
Well, I'd like to hope it is. I'd like to think there's a little chip on the shoulder. I'd like to think you learn a lot in a close game.
Yeah.
And this is a wake-up call for these guys. It should be, hopefully. It'd be interesting to see how they respond to it. A lot of times guys will just write it off and say, no, it was someone else on the team. It's not me. It's not us. And that's a season that's going to go into the tank. Other times, really good teams will learn a lot from a situation
Yeah, that's good.
like
I think
this.
we have the coaching staff to
I would think so, too.
instill that mentality.
I think so
as
too.
well.
And the fire, and a little bit of the embarrassment, to tell you the truth.
They're
You've
gonna
got to
hear-
be
They're going to hear the
embarrassed.
kids on campus saying, man, you guys played like crap this weekend.
I don't think anyone ever says that to somebody on campus. I don't know. I never.
I don't know.
I went to.
I don't know.
I went to class with a.
We got a bunch of homers
ask
on
Trevor
campus
Knight,
then.
and Christian can chime in on this when he joins the podcast. But
Okay.
ask Trevor Knight. Christian sat behind Trevor Knight in class, and Trevor Knight would watch film, and people would talk literal crap to Trevor Knight as he's watching film in class.
So wow, that's interesting. Now he was really bad.
But he was really bad.
Now I went to
He was a
school
bad football
when we
player.
were not a very good We were in dire straits in the 90s, and so I saw the worst of the worst. I saw the slide, and I saw the bottom, and then I saw the rise again.
Yep.
I don't.
And nobody ever taught crap to
No,
players.
well, I have no idea. There were, we're talking about 100 different people over
They're in
multiple
different
years
classes
in
than
different
you too.
classes. But I would say that it's very rare for someone in any way. There'll be a little bit of that, but it won't be that much.
I mean, I'm not going to say somebody
They're not
walks
gonna lip
up
off to
Rattler and
somebody.
be like, man, you look like shit yesterday.
No.
But you may run up and be like, man, that was a tough game. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
I'd
you
see
guys,
that. I don't know. I
thought
think
you
they get
guys
more.
would play better.
I think
a
you're
good
right,
way-
but I
it's a
don't
good
see
way
a
to
lot
get
of.
in the face,
I don't
for
see a lot
sure.
of peer pressure of them
Okay.
saying that they're doing poorly. I don't know. I think they'll see that in the media more than anywhere in social
Well, yeah, I
media.
mean, yeah, those
They'll
guys
see
will be
that a
checking
lot.
Twitter, and they're going to see a bunch of
That they will see.
OU's not for real.
That they will see.
Their defense is bad,
Yeah.
like it always is.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler's not a Heisman contender. They're
Yeah.
going to see all that.
That's good.
Just tonight.
That potentially is really good for us.
And then when they film, the coaches show them the film. They're going to show
all right,
all
that's
the
a good
points
one.
that they played. Like
Is that not? Is that maybe better than if we go out and we
No.
we win 45-0?
Nope. I'd rather win.
So I'm not gonna
45.
lie. I wish we had Nebraska next week. I do. I wish we
Okay.
had Nebraska next
It's
week.
something to fire us up.
It's just something to a little bit of just like a rebound from a dip. Like we're
Well, I think we can rebound it against
No,
a team.
I 100%
Yeah.
think West Carolina is going to be a game where we come out and we can. It's absolutely a game you can go and try some stuff. But I wish we could kind of come out and just be like, hey, like let's get up and like this is a thing.
Right.
Like,
Well,
let's be a team.
I think there's something to that. I don't disagree with you. I'd rather win 45-0, and a lot of that is it would mean you're a better team if you win 45-0. So I guess the more accurate would be, would it be better if a few of those breaks would have gone our way and we win this game, like we get touchdowns instead of field goals, and we connect in the second half and we hold them a couple times. That's all it takes to all of a sudden this game was maybe 49-14.
I mean, my prediction going into
Then
it,
I think that we don't learn a lot from this game, and we get bailed out by things going our way.
I had 45-17 is what I thought, because I thought our defense would actually play better.
Agree.
And they did not in any way.
Yeah.
I mean, when we got those couple of turnovers in the second quarter, I thought this was the beginning of the breakaway. Like,
I did too.
And it was, what was scored at halftime? 34.
And we had it right
17.
here. We only scored 3, and they scored. Yeah, let me see. He's got this stuff jacked up. You keep going with your point.
I mean, after those two turnovers and we score, I feel like, oh, this is where the turning point of us pulling away starts.
Yeah, it's 37-14.
37-14, and then it just never happened. It didn't materialize in the slightest.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm trying to be a little bit bright side that I think we have an opportunity to learn a lot from it in a way that you wouldn't have that opportunity if every break went your way, which is what I think has happened to us in prior years. I think we've had these games where when we look back at it, we think, God, that actually wasn't that great of a performance. Jason White's in the year 2003, the entire season almost went that way. Some of it by just tremendous special teams play. You look at the UCLA game when we set the record for 3 punt returns for a touchdown. It's like, that is not that great of a performance outside of incredible special teams play, and that was really the story of a lot of that
The
season.
defense was good that game,
So,
too.
But look at
no,
that.
it was good. But I'm saying we look at that season as if we were one of the greatest teams of all time. Turns out we probably weren't, and I think a big reason for that was that we had an unrealistic expectation of our capabilities because we got bailed out by a lot.
Didn't
of
we
things.
start off with a Tulsa on a Thursday night and kind of barely won that game? Was
I
that
think that
2003?
it was a tough,
yeah.
I mean, I
one
feel
of
like
those
we
tough
won by
years.
less than 2 touchdowns on a Thursday night in Tulsa.
I don't remember that one specifically, but I think that
Or
most.
maybe it might have been Friday
My
night.
point is, most of that season and many, many other seasons, we played a lot of games where we actually didn't do as well as our margin of victory.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at like
and
2010.
and that's its
Yeah.
own version of a negative.
Exactly.
That's also how this podcast kind of got started, because both of you guys, if we win 45-14 today, both you guys are looking at the spread and being like, well, we did what we should have
so
done.
hypothetically-
and I would have still been the
so
guy saying,
hypothetically,
well, our O-line played like crap.
You're realistic and we're not in this hypothetical world of a game that didn't actually happen. But in this, the one that did happen in the podcast we just have been laying down, you would agree that we're accurate, or are we still homers on it?
I'm surprised at the level of realism you guys have addressed today, because that is very
Well, I'm
surprising.
glad we could surprise you. So let's talk about surprises. What's your predictions for next week?
Next week we have a 7 p.m. kickoff or 6? What time?
6 against Western
pay-per-view.
Carolina.
6 p.m. Western Carolina.
Just give me your general predictions. It doesn't have to be a score or anything. It just can
I
be.
mean, our offensive line has to play better because it's lesser competition. They're probably going to.
You mean has to look better?
Has to look. Yeah, well, they got to play better to look better.
No, they probably can play equal to what they did, and they'll look
I
better.
feel like Beatonbow is going to jump their butt all week in practice. Maybe rotate some guys around.
Do you think that's even legal?
I don't remember seeing Swinson in there much today.
Yeah.
Well, when we thought last year Harrison was a better
Yeah,
player,
that's
Swinson
true.
played a lot
He
last
played
year.
a lot, yeah.
But I remember every time I looked over at left tackle, for the most part, I remember seeing Harrison out there.
So your prediction is we're going to see what looks to be at least a really good
A more
offensive
cohesive
line.
offensive line.
What do you think? We try to solidify a run game?
I hope we can run the ball left because I feel like today we only ran right.
Right.
How many yards rushing did we have today?
130 something.
Do we break 200? Do we break 250?
No, 141 yards.
We better have 220.
Better
rushing.
have 220.
Better have
or you're
220
not
rushing.
you're not coming to the
I mean, the
rescue.
fact that that stat alone right there is insane for an OU football team in the past 7 years. Is 3.3 yards per carry.
That's really bad. What's our yard? What was our total yards per offensive play? Do they have that on there? We have to do the math. on
Total
it.
offensive yards is 430. 430.
How many plays? No, I was saying
Oh,
yards per
offensive
play.
plays. I'm sorry. Total offense plays. We had 75 plays. To Tulane 77.
So 430 divided by 75. You said.
7.8 yards per. No, sorry. 5.7 yards per play. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
5.7 yards
That's
per play. That's
what, about half of what we usually average almost. Not a half. Maybe.
I mean, we average a lot around 9 to 11.
9 to 11.
Well, yeah, it was those record-breaking years of 17 and 18 when we were doing that. But even since then, in 19 and 20, I think we were still in the 6 and 7
Surprised we
category.
didn't try to throw the ball deeper. We had that deep one to
An
Mims
eight,
for 50,
yeah.
but I feel like we
Yeah.
really didn't try to
Stretch the field.
stretch the
not
field at all.
It was.
Yeah, offensive.
And,
Offensive
it was a
line.
really weird feeling because I honestly felt like looking out there, it felt like Tulane had more defensive players than we had offensive players.
But
a
that's
lot of
what's
times
that's
because
what's scary. Is like
they had their
usually,
safeties like
right.
8 yards off the line of scrimmage,
Exactly.
and we never really tested them deep.
Right.
We threw quite a few seam ones, and we had a bunch of the wide receiver screens, which we had 1 or 2 successful ones, but we lost yardage on some of those as well. It was strange that we didn't. I mean, athlete for athlete, we should have a couple guys on the squad that can just straight run a go route
I agree.
past their best player.
That's exactly
and just
my thought.
lob it
I
over
would
the
like to
top.
think that, but I don't know. They may have some pretty strong athletes.
Yeah, and
They- it's-
everything I heard coming into this game. That's a guy's been there for what 6 years. An extremely well coached team. I mean, they're sewed up.
They're out of Louisiana. They probably get access to a lot of talent.
They're fast.
I don't know. So my predictions for next week, I think we're going to be absolutely dynamite. We will have erased all of these doubts and problems and worries. No, I think we'll see a lot of improvement. I expect and am somewhat not just hopeful, but really wanting to see strong improvement. Wanting to see a really clean game where we see a lot of the backups play and can really exert our will and do what we want to do. Oscar also feels the same way. He's pretty.
100% agrees.
Connor, what do you think?
No, I agree. I honestly think we're going to come out next. I think it's going to be a boring game. I think we're going to be in a good way.
Those
right?
are my favorite.
I think we're going to be.
I agree.
I think we're going to be dominant. I think we'll be dominant up front. I think we'll establish a decent run game. I think it'll be a point to establish a run game, and I think we will get to a point where we see the 2 scholarship guys get off the field and see the non-scholarship guys get in. I think we'll make it a point to do that, and I hope that we get our receivers just in a groove where it's these are my guys. Right? I have Mario Williams. I have Mims. I have Hazelwood, and I have
Mike Woods.
You know, that's all I need. And then outside of maybe a couple plays here and there, we're rotating in and out. I hope we're running plays and packages for specific people as opposed to all of these question marks and keeping people guessing. I don't like that smoke screen stuff. So I hope we come out and we can establish something going into the 50th anniversary of the game of the century the week after. So
Yeah, that's going to be exciting.
We'll
So,
see.
are you optimistic or pessimistic? Do you have other predictions before we get to this?
I mean, hopefully Drake Stoops is back.
Yeah.
I feel
It's a
like
big difference. And Theo Weiss.
He's
Theo
a
Weiss
good
as well.
He's a good.
He's not supposed to be back. They
Theo Weiss
made
is
it
out for a
basically
while.
official that he's
Really?
going to be out for
All right.
half the
I
season.
feel like Drake's a great 3rd and 5, and he's going to pick up 8 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we could have used that a little bit today.
No, yeah, absolutely. And the consistency. Remember, he was our most consistent receiver
He
last year.
was. He runs that
both with
great
route
where
running
runs it
and
from the
he
slot
catches
and cuts
the
over in front
football.
of
Who's that?
He's like a
Talking about
Steve.
Mims?
No,
No, Stoops.
Stoops, yeah.
He's
No,
like
Stoops
Steve
is
Largent catching the football.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I mean, it's obvious. So you guys look at the stat line. I mean, Spencer's picked his favorite receiver for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so.
I mean, Mims.
Yeah, Mims is the guy.
Not a bad pick.
Not a bad pick to have.
No,
Yeah,
it'll be
better
it'll
than
be-
Rambo from last
so
year.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how the guys around him play. I'm super interested in Hazelwood. I think the dude is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about an ego there. I'm worried about a guy who thinks he should get more touches than what he gets. I hope that
The
he
worst
stays,
thing there could be poison in the locker room.
for sure. I hope he stays focused because I think he's going to make a difference down the line. And
Yeah,
like you
I agree.
said, I think Drake Stoops is a massive role player in everything that you're trying to accomplish. He opens everything up for everyone else.
Yeah.
So
And he's a guy you have to cover. If you don't cover him, he's
Yeah,
going to be open. He's going to kill you.
absolutely. So
My prediction will be along the lines of like a 52-10 type game where
That was
the
my score this
the
week.
fourth quarter you get quite a few. You get
Guys.
Knowles in there, you get Hudson in there.
I'm
you get to run a
more
couple offensive line
I'm
guys
more
in there.
optimistic about the margin and in both directions, just because. And I don't know anything about Western Carolina, but I'd like to see our defense come out there and very nearly pitch a shutout.
In this day and age, 10 is very nearly a shutout.
It's difficult, and I thought we would hold Tulane a lot better than we did today.
Yeah, I thought
But
17.
in fact, I thought they were going to score at the end of the game on backups, not be scoring at the front end of the game, and then of course they did in the fourth
Right.
quarter. But I'd like to see us be able to really control the game and probably put more points up than that. In fact, I'd like to see us in the 60s most likely, just
I was
because
thinking about
you're
63, 65
you've,
as well.
you've got every reason to be trying to score. Unlike in other times when you're in a game where you're like Nebraska, we won't be able to do, even though Nebraska's not very good. We're going to turn off the gas with Nebraska if we happen to be up by 40 points or something. But
And you want Caleb Williams to get some.
I'd like to see him get some quality touches.
throws.
I want to
Yes,
see,
lots of
I want
time,
to see him
lots of
sling the
time.
ball for sure.
Yeah.
So, are you optimistic or
Does Riley
pessimistic?
won a quarterback controversy in the fans, though.
I don't think he cares about that. I don't think he thinks about that one bit. He shouldn't.
And you can't.
If he does, he needs to take a penalty shot and be. He should absolutely not think about what the fans want in terms of worried about some quarterback
I
controversy.
mean, if it's 42-10 at the end of the third quarter, and then you throw Caleb Williams in there and let him go crazy, and he throws 3 touchdowns on 3 drives.
That's
But
a
on
wonderful.
what?
That's
On
a
what,
great
though?
thing.
Yeah, on what? On what though? On a Western Carolina team who already knows their beat. Like, I mean, that's
Well, I think that what you want
I
to
didn't
do
say
is
fans were the most intelligent people in the world.
no.
I'm just saying
Well, that's why.
it's more noise.
I don't think you worry about the noise. You worry about what's best for your football team and giving guys experience. And the thing to do that would be get your guy out there and get him some experience. He's never really played any meaningful downs yet in college football. So are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I'm optimistic. I'm extremely optimistic. I still remain very high on this team. I'm very excited about what we. And again, it's odd, but I'm super excited from the defensive side of the ball.
Do
for
you,
sure.
think at this point right now that OU is a playoff
Absolutely.
team?
Absolutely. And I will still make the bold prediction, I guess, if you want to call it bold. We're going to run the table, and we'll be in the Big 12 championship. We'll win the Big 12 championship. We'll go into the playoff as a 1 or 2 seed for sure.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Neither. I'm right in the middle. I'm a realist. So I'm going to say that we probably lose 1 or 2 conference games, but we still win the Big 12 championship. And then based on if we lose the 1 or the second game, if we lose 1, we probably make the playoffs. If we lose 2, we don't make the playoffs. But I think
Well, I think we would all agree.
Texas
that's
is a
kind of
trap
math.
game every year. Iowa State seemingly is a trap game. Kansas State's had our numbered. We haven't beaten their current head coach.
I'm going to call it for Lucas. He's pessimistic.
Their current head coach. So I feel like this is a 10-2, 11-1 season, and one or the
pessimistic.
other gets us to.
That's pessimistic.
I don't think that's pessimistic.
You're definitely pessimistic. It's pessimistic from the standpoint of your
I think
aspiration.
we could lose
What's your
one.
aspiration for OU?
to win every game.
Who do you think we lose to?
There you go. So you're pessimistic.
So I know you say you're thinking
You could
maybe,
lose one or two of those three games.
Yeah, so
K-State, Iowa State, Texas.
We would
But
all
if you
agree.
had to really, if you really have to break it down, who are you saying our losses to?
Yeah, we got. Yeah.
Texas.
I mean, that game, no matter if you're good or bad, it's
We
a
are going
50-50
to.
game.
We are going
It's
to.
not a 50-50
We are
game.
going to railroad Kansas State. That's not even going to be a game.
That's an unbelievable statement.
No, I will bet you. I'll bet you another dinner.
You
at
went
the
to
ranch.
Manhattan 2 years ago and said the same exact thing, and we got run out of the gym.
I will bet you another dinner.
Then
at
they
the
came to
ranch.
our house last year when we were light years ahead of them talent-wise, and they beat us on our home field after being down by 21.
After a bad call and with one of our best players not playing, it was a fluky deal. They did beat us.
I say we go 11-1 regular season.
If Kansas State beats us, that's a heck of an upset this
win the
year.
Big 12
Absolutely.
championship, and then either force seed in the playoff or not in the playoff, depending on how the rest of college football.
Well, yes, I know that. But you're just.
But to me, that's not being.
All you're doing
a
is hedging
pessimist
your
by
bets
saying,
the whole way.
We're going to lose a game, so that's being a pessimist.
So I guess the way I'd look at it is you're either not saying anything, or you're saying the thing that makes it. Well, I guess both of them are saying nothing. You're hedging your bet so much that you're making it sound like you can't be wrong, you can't be right. But to me, it's
I could be
pessimistic
wrong
because
if we go 12-0.
I'm saying from the standpoint of your desire is to win a national title. And I'm saying, do you think we can? You are strong that you think we have a good shot at it. You're saying everything you say tells me that you don't think we've got a great shot at it. But maybe I'm misreading your.
I mean, I'd say
Your view.
after today's game, it doesn't really change my opinion of how the season's going to go. I think going into the season, I had us at about a 70% chance to make the playoffs.
So at what point?
That's strong. That's a strong.
With an 11-1 record.
All
At
right.
what point do you think you get there to say like I think this is like the team? Is it like a couple of routes and we win the first 3 games in our conference against West Virginia, K-State, and Texas handily? Is that the only thing that'll get you there? Or
Yeah,
is
it'll
it?
get
Or
you
is it? Even if
it takes more than that.
even
for
if
me,
we
I
do
feel
that,
like.
even if we do that, it'll take. We gotta still go beat Iowa State at home. We have to beat Oklahoma State and Stillwater type of mentality.
I mean, the 2017 year, we lost. Who did we lose to that season?
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Week before
At
Texas. Week before Texas.
And
Fluky
then
game.
going into the last 2 games of the regular season and the Big 12 and the Georgia game, I felt like we were the best team in the country.
Right.
I didn't think we were going to lose.
Okay.
I felt like
Okay.
we're going to win the last 2 games.
So
we're going
there's
to win
your
Big 12
standard.
championship.
Okay,
We're
I'm
going to
with
beat
you.
Georgia. We're going to beat Bama.
I'm with you.
But
So
since then, I've felt more the last 3 years. I've felt more along the lines of we're an 11-1 team. We're a fringe
is a heck of a
4 or
team.
5 playoff game. That's why I'm not a pessimist.
yeah.
I feel like, I mean, am I satisfied not winning a national championship? Of course not.
No, I don't think you are. But I'm saying the reason I think it's pessimistic, or the reason I spin it as pessimistic, is I'm saying, what is your outlook
Because
for
I don't
the
think we're going
Sooners
to
right
be the
now?
best of the best every time.
My
So that's
when I say are we,
pessimistic.
so when I'm saying I'm optimistic, is I'm saying my goal is to win the Big 12 and and play for the national title with a good chance of winning it. I'm optimistic we can get there. So I think you may be optimistic we can get there the more you're talking about it. You're just putting all these different caveats in place that we'd all agree. Yeah, if we lose that game, yeah, we're in very
I don't think we're going undefeated.
difficult position to do it.
So if that makes
Okay,
me
so
a
yes.
pessimist in your
So I was
eyes,
going no, not necessarily. Not at all. Actually, I think now I'm going to label you an optimist.
We can't do that.
Yeah, see, exactly. So maybe
doesn't
that tells us what you're
I'm a realist.
afraid to be an optimist. Realism isn't an option here. So look at it this way: if you're, and I'm gonna say I'm an optimist. I'm optimistic about from the standpoint of I'm an optimist because I'm optimistic about where we stand right now, our chances to play for and win the Big 12 title, the national title. It took a hit today, my optimism, for sure.
Absolutely.
So I am not going to downgrade that optimism, but I'm still optimistic that we're in a great position, better position than average to get there, better position than our average to get there. So we've got 11 regular season games left. What is your win total for OU for those 11 games?
10.
So that'd be your over-under? You'd set the over-under at 10.5?
Yes, I would.
That's a fair over-under. And I'll take the over. And so from that standpoint, I'm optimistic you're
For sure.
pessimistic. But that's a very narrow window, obviously. It's like half a game. They could go either way in many cases. Now I'll ask you one more prediction. One last one. If we lose a game, Will we lose to a team that is a complete surprise, or a team that we probably have a fair chance to lose to? I don't know. We're going to be favored in every game we play.
I mean, it depends on what
as it
this
looks right
K-State
now.
talk that over here Connor's saying that we're going to obliterate them.
Well, no,
And I think
win or
they're-
lose.
I think they're one of the teams that could go in either way, just because they've proven the last 2 years that
No,
coach
they're not a good
has
team.
our number,
No,
regardless
he
of
doesn't
the
have
athletes.
our number. It's two games that he happened to win. That doesn't have our
He's
number.
2-0. Like, I would say he has our number.
What, he's got like some magic voodoo, or he's got access to the
Maybe
Lincoln Riley
Maybe he
playbook.
understands the schemes better
Maybe he does. Maybe so.
against Riley than the other.
So
people
you
do.
think that K-State against OU is a different matchup than K-State against any other comparable team to OU?
Yes.
You think there is some inherent
I-
advantage he has
Yes.
over OU
Because
specifically?
because of what?
Because of 2 losses?
Yeah, because of the 2 losses.
Do you think
I
he
mean,
just,
Kansas
like-
State has proven
He
that
schemes
they're not
better.
a great
He
team,
game- he games
but
he
they've
game plan
still been
better.
able to beat
Game
OU
plans better
2
for
out of 2
Lincoln
times.
With
Even
this
when
coach?
they've gone on to lose 4 or 5 other games each
I
season.
thought through that. I thought through that mentality. I still don't buy it. I don't
Okay.
buy it. I don't buy it for a couple reasons. I don't buy it because we were blowing them out of the water last year, and they got a couple of really bad for us, really great breaks for them. You have a couple of blown coverages, and you have a running back who slips through a couple of missed tackles, in my opinion.
And a fumble in the right into
That's
the
not-
hands of
that's not scheming.
several
That's-
turnovers, one fumble right into the guy's
That's not game
hands.
planning, in my opinion. That's you had a stroke of good fortune.
Yeah, I would say that.
So what about
it
in
seemed-
Manhattan then?
When we
You
lost,
guys
It was,
Manhattan.
there was very similar
no, I
weird
don't know.
circumstances.
When we lost to Manhattan, they game planned way better
They
than the
outplayed
first
us.
time.
Yeah,
they outplayed us.
absolutely.
That game plan he put together for that first year Alex Grinch defense was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's nothing we'd
Is
seen
there
all
any
year.
way with those athletes that we should ever be outplayed against?
Oh, it's
K-State?
always capable to be. You're always capable.
If
of
you're
being
scheming for
outplayed.
something different, yeah, and you
Yeah.
try to in-game adjust and
There's
your
too
guys
much
don't
luck
adjust
in
to it,
football.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you look at that game, I still watched that game because we
still
got an onside kick,
almost
and it did
won
not
that
get
game.
credited to
Exactly,
us.
got
I
a
agree
bad
with
call
that.
to
And we
stop.
still
was a bad
probably
call.
win that game after we go through all those adjustments and we go through everything at half and even post half. We still probably win that game if we get that call on the onside kick.
So I would
He asked
be.
which games I felt like could
That's
be.
fair.
That was
that
one
is
of
a
the
dangerous game.
Texas, Iowa State.
Well, now I actually said, are
Kansas
we
State.
going to lose to a team because our MO has been we lose to a team we really shouldn't lose to.
Yeah.
We lose to Texas when we really shouldn't lose to, and we lose to
Unranked
Iowa State. We lose to
Texas.
K-State, like we're talking about. Now, last year Iowa State was a very good team.
But you said we'll
losing
be
to them is
favored in every
normal.
game, so
Yeah.
you're just talking like anything double-digit favorites.
Yeah. So are we going to lose to a team that we're a 25-point favorite to, or are we going to lose to a team that we're a 3 or a 7
I
point
think we
favorite
lose to a
to?
team that we're between 8 and 12, 14, 20
I
point
think so,
favorite,
too.
some of that range.
If a loss is going to come, I think it's
I don't know
that
if we're
range.
going to have a game that's less than
I
that,
guess here's what I'm
other than
optimistic
maybe Iowa
about.
State.
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah,
8 and a
that's
half.
true.
I don't know if
I
8
think
and a
that's
half-
true. I don't know if we got
Unless
many
Texas
chances.
looks great, maybe
Yeah,
it's a 5-point
you're right.
spread when we
You're
play
right.
them.
We don't have enough opportunity to lose in a game like that. But
Texas is rolling Louisiana currently.
I'd like to think that we're a better team now on both sides of the ball, or at least on the defensive side of the ball. Always been a good team on the offensive side of the ball. That we're not going to lose a game we absolutely shouldn't lose, but who knows? We'll see. So I think that'll wrap it up. We kind of ran longer than we wanted to, but this is a good inaugural one.
First pod.
We're gonna have some other ones about just talking about football in general, talking about blue bloods, who's in, who's out, talking about the future of football. When I was mentioning the SMU thing, what I've been talking about this week, and we'll talk about in a future pod, is that I think SMU may be the team to worry about. If you're a lot of other teams out there like OSU, that your biggest competition might be SMU. SMU might be the team of the future in regards to a second-tier team that is exceptionally good and challenges for recruits. But we can get to all that controversy later. Thanks for listening.
Perfect.